Fascism is a dangerous political ideology that has left a dark mark on history. Originating in the early 20th century, it has been responsible for some of the most brutal regimes the world has ever seen. It is built on a foundation of hate, often targeting specific groups as scapegoats for societal problems. This ideology manipulates fear and prejudice to gain support. It seeks to divide, not unite, creating an us versus them mentality. This division is used to justify extreme measures and policies that strip away rights and freedoms. Fascism thrives on fear and anger, using these emotions to rally people behind its cause. The rhetoric is often filled with promises of security and strength, but at a great cost. It promises strength through oppression, claiming that only through strict control and the suppression of dissent can a nation be strong and secure. Fascism is about extreme nationalism, where the nation is placed above all else. This often leads to aggressive foreign policies and conflicts with other nations. It celebrates the nation above all else, glorifying its past and promising a return to a perceived golden age. This nostalgia is a powerful tool for manipulation. Individual rights are sacrificed for the perceived good of the nation. Fascism rejects democracy, viewing it as weak and inefficient. Instead, it favors a centralized authoritarian rule. It seeks to concentrate power in the hands of a single, charismatic leader. This leader is often portrayed as a savior, someone who alone can restore the nation's greatness. This leader, often seen as a savior, promises to restore the nation to its former glory. The cult of personality around the leader is a key feature of fascist regimes. Fascism thrives on a mythical past, a time of perceived greatness that it promises to restore. This idealized past is used to justify the harsh realities of the present and the sacrifices demanded of the people. Fascism doesn't appear overnight. It festers in the shadows, feeding off societal anxieties. Economic hardship, political instability, and social unrest create fertile ground for fascist ideologies to take root. People, feeling lost and disillusioned, become vulnerable to extremist rhetoric. Fascist movements offer simple solutions to complex problems. They provide scapegoats, blaming minority groups, immigrants, or political opponents for the nation's woes. This blame game creates a climate of fear and resentment. This fear and resentment are powerful tools for fascist leaders. They exploit these emotions to manipulate public opinion. Fascist movements are masters of propaganda. They understand the power of language to shape perceptions and manipulate emotions. They use simple, emotionally charged language to appeal to people's fears and prejudices. They repeat these messages constantly, through rallies, posters, and the media. The goal is to create an echo chamber, where dissenting voices are silenced. They portray themselves as the sole defenders of the nation, the only ones who can save it from the perceived threats. This rhetoric creates a sense of urgency, a need for immediate action. At the heart of every fascist movement is a charismatic leader. This figure embodies the aspirations and anxieties of the disaffected masses. They are often skilled orators, able to captivate audiences with their rhetoric. They cultivate an image of strength, determination, and unwavering patriotism. They present themselves as larger-than-life figures, destined to lead the nation to greatness. This cult of personality fosters blind loyalty and unquestioning obedience. Dissent is equated with betrayal, and critics are branded as enemies of the state. Exploiting crises, seizing the moment. Fascist movements thrive on chaos and instability. They exploit moments of national crisis to advance their agendas. These crises might be economic downturns, political scandals, or social unrest. In times of uncertainty, people crave stability and strong leadership. Fascist movements offer themselves as the solution, promising to restore order and strength. They use these crises to justify their authoritarian measures, arguing that drastic times call for drastic measures. These measures often include suppressing dissent, limiting civil liberties, and consolidating power. Dismantling truth propaganda and control. Once in power, fascist regimes move quickly to consolidate their control. They understand that information is power. They establish strict control over the media, censoring dissenting voices and spreading their propaganda. They rewrite history, glorifying the nation's past and demonizing its enemies. They create a climate of fear and suspicion, where people are afraid to speak out against the regime. Education is also a key target. Fascist regimes indoctrinate youth with their ideology, teaching them to obey the state and distrust outsiders. The rise of the black shirts, from fringe to force. The rise of Benito Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy provides a chilling example of fascism's ascent to power. Mussolini, a former journalist, founded the Fascist Party in 1919. Initially a fringe movement, the fascists exploited Italy's post-war economic and political turmoil to gain support. They presented themselves as a bulwark against communism, appealing to the middle class and wealthy landowners. Mussolini's paramilitary force, the Black Shirts, used violence and intimidation to silence opponents and disrupt democratic processes. History's shadow echoes of fascism. The horrors of Nazi Germany serve as a stark reminder of fascism's potential for destruction. The rise of the Nazi regime in the 1930s and 1940s led to one of the darkest chapters in human history. The world witnessed unprecedented levels of brutality and inhumanity as the Nazis sought to impose their ideology through violence and terror. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party rose to power in the 1930s, exploiting the economic depression and political instability of the Weimar Republic. The economic hardships faced by the German people created fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Hitler's charismatic oratory and promises of a restored Germany resonated deeply with a populace desperate for change. The Nazis scapegoated Jews, communists, and other minority groups, blaming them for Germany's problems. Through relentless propaganda, they dehumanized these groups, fostering an environment of hatred and intolerance. The regime's propaganda machine was powerful, using media, literature, and education to spread their toxic ideology. They promised to restore Germany to its former greatness, appealing to nationalist sentiment. The allure of a revived national pride and the promise of economic recovery drew many to the Nazi cause. Hitler's vision of a pure Aryan race in a dominant Germany captivated the masses, leading to widespread support for his regime. The Nazis' reign of terror resulted in the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, and the deaths of millions of others deemed enemies of the state. The world must never forget the atrocities committed during this period. The echoes of fascism serve as a chilling reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and bigotry. It is a stark warning to future generations to remain vigilant against the forces of tyranny and oppression. Eternal vigilance, resisting fascism's pull. Fascism is not a relic of the past. It is a persistent threat that can resurface in various forms, often when we least expect it. The ideologies that underpin fascism, intolerance, authoritarianism, and the suppression of dissent are still very much alive. Its echoes can still be heard today in the rhetoric of extremist groups and authoritarian leaders around the world. These groups exploit economic instability, social divisions, and fear to gain power and influence. It is our responsibility to be vigilant, to recognize the signs of fascism, and to resist its insidious appeal. This means staying informed, engaging in open dialogue, and fostering a culture of inclusivity and respect. We must defend democratic institutions, protect freedom of speech, and ensure that our political systems remain transparent and accountable. Voting is a powerful tool in this fight, as it allows us to choose leaders who uphold democratic values and challenge hate speech and discrimination. Education is key. By teaching critical thinking and empathy, we can equip future generations to recognize and reject fascist ideologies. We must learn from the mistakes of the past. The history of fascism is a stark reminder of what can happen when hatred and intolerance go unchecked. And teach future generations about the dangers of fascism. Museums, documentaries, and educational programs play a crucial role in preserving this history and imparting its lessons. Only through constant vigilance and active resistance can we prevent history from repeating itself. By standing together and speaking out against injustice, we can build a future where fascism has no place.